So as I previously explained, this is the slab that I made, and I am attaching the little neck of the turtle that I made by rolling out a ball of clay, lengthening it, and I am scoring and scratching it right now, as you can see, and I am going to wet it with a little bit of water so it sticks better, and I'm just adding some more scoring. And then with my finger, I'm going to melt down the sides of the clay by applying pressure just so that it makes a good seal. And then this is where I am finishing that up and just smoothing down all the edges so that everything is nice and clean. So for my turtle, I'm making 4 of these little paws, I guess you could say, and what I did was roll out a small ball about an inch wide and an inch tall, and applying pressure to the bottom, I made it kind of an L shape, as you can see there, and with my needle-ish tool, I'm scratching out little ridges so that it can make the illusion of little toes, I guess you would call them. So I'm just smoothing that out, and then I will eventually scratch and attach those to the sides of my pot. This is the second little foot that I made, and just for reference, that's how it looked in the beginning. So with my finger, I kind of took out a chunk right there and smoothed it out, and I'm going to do the same thing with the needle tool to make those little ridges. This is where I attached the little feet to the sides of my slab. So I'm going to scratch the sides on both the little feet and the slab just so that everything will stick nicely, and also don't forget to use the water so that you can make a little seam. So here I'm making my first coil, which is going to be the rim for the little pinch pot. And what I'm doing is I made a ball of clay and I put it down, and with my fingertips I'm applying pressure from the middle of the clay little snake, I guess you could say, outwards while rolling up and down. So that'll make a little circle snake and just keep getting longer and smaller in width. And here you can see it's at a pretty good shape, and I just wet it down with some water so that no cracking would be there. And if there were any little cracks in it, I would just wet it up with water, and this is where I'm kind of measuring the length and just making sure all the sides are smooth. So I made sure to do the same scoring technique on the base of the slab, and on the bottom of my coil, I'm putting it down and wetting it with water and just pushing it down, making sure all the sides are flush with each other so there are no gaps, so when you fire your project, it won't explode in the kiln. And there I am, just smoothing it all down. So here I rolled out 2 very small balls of clay, and I'm just scratching and attaching them to make the eyeballs for my little turtle, and I'm making sure to use water, and I'm going to eventually use my needle tool to flush down the sides right there, because these are so small they could easily get knocked off, and I don't want that happening. Now this is where I make my pinch pot. What I did was I took a chunk of clay, molded it into a thick ball, and made sure it was pretty smooth all around, and with my thumb I stuck it down into the middle, pushing outwards and down, applying pressure and making sure to continue cupping this little pot in my hands so that it'll continue to keep its shape, and make sure to apply even pressure throughout so that it won't end up too thick on one side or lopsided. And if it starts to feel dry, you can always take some water and smooth it down. So at this point I noticed it started to feel a little dry, so I stuck my hands in the water, wet it down, and then with that I was able to smooth down the top so that it could just look pretty and flush, and I'm just making sure all the seams look even here. And then this part is just for cosmetic purposes, just making sure it looks pretty, even, and all smooth throughout. Of course, it's hard to get a perfect pinch pot. I've only made about 3 in my entire life, but it's nice when you can just try to flatten down the sides and make sure everything's smooth and even. And then my last step was to score both the bottom of the pinch pot and the base of my little turtle and wet it down with water so that they can be flush into each other. And the whole point of the little pinch pot I made was so that I could put a little plant or succulent in there eventually. So this is supposed to be the perfect little plant holder. And now I'm just going to continue to smooth everything down so that it can just look pretty.